The edge of logic. I think I may have found, or rather, I may have finally realized the ridiculousness of logic. And the reason why this is such a big thing for me is because I keep on hearing the masters like Sadhguru, Carl Jung, people like them. They talk about how at certain point of development, logic ceases to serve, logic ceases to function well. And I was very confused. I was very confused because for a really long time, logic has always been my friend. He has helped me to get as far as I have gotten, and the reason why my clients are with me is because a lot of things that I said make sense. However, it has been said that after a certain point, it stops making sense anymore. And how can sense not make sense? That is a question which I have often pondered, and I think I may have found why. So Ken Wilber talks about pre-rational, rational, and post-rational, and Ken Wilber talked about it in such a sense where all three stages are necessary in the human development. There is complete ignorance, where we are in a state where we do not know, we do not understand anything. And it is at that point where our very survival is at stake, when we don't understand anything. We cannot function, we cannot understand. If we cannot understand, we cannot know, and we cannot be sure that this is what it is. If we cannot be sure of anything, we cannot function. And that is the reason why logic exists. And reason, logic, it exists so that we can tell us this food is for us to eat, that food is for us to avoid. This is dangerous, that is helpful. This is for survival, that is for growth. All of these things are necessary, but to a certain point, it stops becoming rational anymore. And I think the closest brush I have with the irrationality of logic came because a couple of days ago, if you guys have been following my Facebook Live, you guys noticed that I was struggling with this thing about belief, because according to NLP, everything that we think we know is not really something that is true. It is simply a matter of belief. And when we say we believe in something, it may be coming from a position of weakness. It's like, oh, I believe. And sometimes when we say we know something, it is actually not a matter of belief anymore. We thought that it's a matter of knowledge, because how can 2 + 2 be anything else but 4? But it is only something which is 4 because I agree that it is 4 and you agree that it is 4, and therefore we collectively all believe in it, and therefore it becomes something that we know. It is common knowledge. But this serves us up to a certain point, because Carl Jung, when he was in his younger years, he conducted a multi-year experiment on himself, and he started dreaming. He calls it confronting the unconscious. And in his work in psychology, he was treating clients, and he felt that he was reaching towards the edge of what research can tell him. And at some point, he just said that, okay, I'm just going to completely abandon all rational thinking. And he said to himself, he's going to go into this experiment where he's going to allow himself to dream. And when I say dream, I'm not talking about the kind of dream which we have, lofty ambition. I'm not talking about ambition here. Carl Jung said that he's going to allow himself to dream all of the things that he never dared to dream before. And the reason why in the past he did not allow himself to do so is because when he dreams, I'm literally talking about dreams, not ambition, yeah? When he dreams the most horrifying, terrible things that he can imagine. And here's the thing, he noticed in himself that certain times those things are just bubbling beneath the surface. And it is the continuation of these works that allowed him to create things like shadow work. The idea that below our conscious mind there is a shadow, there is a darkness that we suppress. And the reason why we suppress is because if we allow it to come forth, we may not be able to function. So when he says that he is going to allow himself to dream, it is a matter of high consequence. And he went into this. He went into this and he just allowed himself to just journal, because words in its most in a way that makes sense cannot capture what images, what movies that were playing in his mind. So he would then write he would then collect a series of journals which he collectively calls the Black Book. There were 7 journals all in all, and he would just allow himself to dream, and whatever that comes forward from the dream he just write it down without trying to have without any way to allow it to make sense for people. He would just write it down. He would just write without filter. Whatever it is that comes to mind, he would just write. And something that he noted in that experiment was that he said that for any passerby, for anyone who is just a casual observer who doesn't know what he's doing, it could be other psychologists, even anybody at all who does not know what he's doing, if he said that if they were to read his journal, they would immediately come to the conclusion that this person who wrote this journal has gone mad, has gone completely and utterly mad. But at the same time, it is just a dissection. It is through this experience, it is through this experiment that he went through for a couple of years that allowed Carl Jung to create such amazing works that revolutionized the field of psychology ever since. And some of the works that you have seen today, NLP, archetypes, DISC profiling, the Myers-Briggs test, all of it has its roots from Carl Jung's teachings. And most of the teachings for the rest of his life, he described it as simply an interpretation of what he has learned during those period of few years where he conducted a self-experiment. So the other day I was struggling with this thing, like, how can I not believe? I don't want to believe in anything, but at the same time, I cannot function if I don't believe in anything. I cannot function at all. And that is where I think my own personal logic and reasoning completely and utterly break down. Because it is this logic that is creating this loop. It is creating this loop. Belief is simply, number one, belief is a matter of making conclusions out of something that I do not know. Therefore, it is useless. Number two, without believing in anything, if I do have no knowledge of anything, I cannot function in the modern world, in the world at all, in the physical world. I cannot function at all. So this is a case of, people will say overthinking, but it's actually not an overthinking. It's a loop. It's a loop that is never ending. So this is actually one limit of logic. And the other edge of logic, the other limit of logic would be, in the world, in the not prehistoric time, in past times, in history, all the way back a few thousand years ago, we have a very simplistic view of the world. We would just say, okay, the world, there is me, there is my clan, there is this food, there is dangers, and there is God. God created all of these things, right? God created you and me. God controls the weather. God controls disasters. God controls good fortune. But as we learn to utilize logic more and more, we start to dissect natural disasters as a cause. It is not caused by God, at least not all the time. We start to see that there is more to this body than just a hunk of meat. There is internal organs, and we realize as we advance and we study, there are such things as beneath, aside from the organ, you can dissect it even further. From the organ, there are structures, and beneath the structures there are cells. And we thought that, okay, cells are, that's it, that we are all made of cells. And then we discovered that beneath cells there is something even more than that. There is things that comprises a cell, and you break that down even further, it is made out of structures, protein structures we call DNA. And when we break down DNA even further, and as we study more and more, as we reason and logicalize more and more, DNA breaks down into its constituent molecules. And we thought that, okay, molecules are the end. The elements, they are the end. You have carbon, you have oxygen, you have the periodic table. We thought that was the end. That was the scientists of ages past. They thought that was the end. They break it down even further. There's atoms. Beneath the atoms, there is subatomic particles. Beneath the subatomic particles, we know that there are 6 different types of quarks. What comes next? We do not know. In every field of technology, medicine, astronomy, astrology, every single field, fitness including, health including, every single field that we know of, at first it is something which is vague. It is one, and then the logic divides it into 2, and it divides the 2 into 2, and it divides it even further and further and further and further. The sages of the past have been saying that actually there is no such thing. All of it is one, all of it is the same. It's just that we, in our need, in our desire to survive, in our desire to segment and differentiate, we have a need to label, this person is this, that person is that, this molecule is this one, that molecule does that. Where is the end? I think, and this is just my humble opinion, I think there is actually probably no end to it. There's probably never going to be an end. We will divide quarks into something even further down, and from the constituent energies, we can divide it into further and further and further and further. How long, how many more division do we need to create in order for us to realize actually division is a figment, or is a creation of the mind? So that, my friends, is the edge of logic. There is a never-ending loop of this. My personal experience of it is belief and no belief. It's a loop. And science tells us there is no end. There is infinite times we can divide something. No end. So what do we do with this? That is a question which I'm very interested to find out. Could this be the reason why Sadhguru says that there is a lot of chaos in him? Could this be the reason why masters, yogis, sages all say at certain point of development, logic cannot be relied on? I'm inclined to say yes, but even that in itself is also a belief. So with that, the only thing we can think of is, the only thing I can think of is to be comfortable with not knowing, not ever knowing, not ever needing, not ever having the answer to this particular question. And that, I think, requires a lot of courage. It is a very scary place to be in. But at the same time, I think on the bright side, intellectually at least, I don't fully understand in my heart, but in my mind, at the very least, my intellect understands that at the very least, this being in this chaotic, being comfortable with this chaotic environment, inner environment, allows me to be completely and utterly free of any beliefs. But right now, my mind knows, my heart do not know. I do not understand it experientially. But I hope the day comes soon when both my mind and my heart are able to be with this chaos indefinitely. And I think that would probably be when I can well and truly experience the experience of self-realization. So with that being said, that's my sharing for today. I have nothing left to contribute about this topic, but it is quite a nice place to share all of this, and whoever it is that is listening, thank you for listening. Continuously sharing this actually allows me to learn as well. Anyway, I shall go and have my dinner. I wish you guys have a great evening, great dinner as well. I shall share more stuff as I continue on my journey of self-realization. Tomorrow morning, 6:45 a.m. Journal with me. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay true to yourself. See you guys soon.